Welcome back to another episode of APositive Insights. My name's Darren Cottrell. I'm joined by Brendan Herlihy, and we had the pleasure of chatting to Greg Savage. If you're not aware of Greg, you're probably not in the recruitment industry. He's a recruitment industry expert, and today we focused on starting a recruitment business. A lot of people are thinking about doing this. In this episode, one of the key things I really took from it was that first hire. So you set up a business, and then who you're going to hire next. There's a really good area to focus on. What did you enjoy, Brendan?
Yes, thank you, Darren. It was an enjoyable podcast. The first hire was definitely interesting. I also thought the complementation to that would be the tech stack and finding the right suppliers for your business to help you achieve your goals, whether that is becoming a lifestyle business or taking over the world. So a lot of people will basically get a lot of information to help them on their journey from this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Guys, I think you're going to get a lot out of this. As I mentioned every time, we are trying to grow the podcast. So please like, please share, please subscribe to the channel. I hope you enjoy this one. Thanks. Welcome back to another episode of APositive Insights. My name is Darren Cottrell from APositive, and this is Brendan Herlihy, also from APositive, and we have the pleasure of being joined by Greg Savage. Obviously, thanks so much, Greg, for joining us. You've been a busy boy recently.
Yeah, thank you. I was overseas, but now I've rushed back to be at this podcast. I think it's important I'm here.
We appreciate you returning from Europe, just for us.
Exactly.
So how was the trip?
It was good. A lot of good things happened. South Africa won the Rugby World Cup. That was...
You said good things?
That's a good thing. 4 times, actually. That's how much goodness. And also I did my speaking tour of my book around the UK, which was a lot of fun. A lot of people turned up, and thankfully it was well received.
So today we're here to talk about startups. We see heaps of startups. We're speaking to them obviously day in, day out. Yeah. We'd love to hear the key considerations that people should think about when starting up.
My first thought is, before you start up, ask yourself why you're doing it. Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned there's a lot of startups. Well, I bet that's true, and I'm aware of that. It would be interesting and depressing in 3 years' time to see how many of those still exist, and how many of them have moved beyond just one person sitting in a lonely room on their own. So that's not a bad thing if that's how you want to work. Yeah. But the first consideration, and I've advised so many people, having done the startups myself and advised on many and seen many, and also counseled a lot of people who wish they hadn't done it. Yeah. You've got to ask yourself, what's my goal? And your goal might be, I just want independence. I want to work my own hours. I know I can bill a lot. I'm happy to sit at my kitchen table and I'll make a great living. And then go and do that. That's wonderful. But a lot of people start with hazy aspirations about building a business, but they have no plan, no strategy, and 0 skills to do that. And that often ends up in disappointment and often money lost as well.
Yeah, okay. So it's not always important to scale. So it's not always important to grow.
Look, the reality is that 80% of recruitment companies in the world have less than 10 staff. And the reason for that is twofold. A lot of people are happy to be on their own or just with 2 or 3 like-minded people, and they make a great living, but they don't build an asset. Many people do have aspirations and plans to grow, but they have no idea how to do that. They're good recruiters. That's why they were brave enough to go out on their own. But that doesn't make you a business builder, a manager, or a leader. You can learn if you've got advice and you've got a plan. But by definition, you actually move away from your core competency, because you move from being a recruiter to a business leader. And most can't do that without help, and even with help, a lot can't do it, because it's a very difficult thing to do without a plan and without the ability to implement.
So would you say, like, if you're setting up and your goal is not to have a lifestyle business, would it be wise to maybe sort of reach out to a mentor or someone that can help you put in a plan like that?
Yeah, look, I think the main point is a plan, and people talk about a vision, and a vision's good, and the vision might be, and I hear this all the time, I'm going to have a 100-person recruitment company specializing in this, and that's great. We should all have our dreams. I still believe I can play international rugby, so we all have our dreams. I think once you've got that, it's like, what am I going to be 12 months out? Yeah? Well, I'm going to be 12 months out, and that might be, I will have hired my first person, or more ambitious, potentially. And then you work back, almost like a backwards plan, to work out what you have to do to get there. I think the other thing I know your question was about mentor, and I'll address that in a moment, but the main point I'm focusing on is getting a plan, and outside help will be excellent, particularly from somebody who's done it in the recruitment industry. A generic business advisor can be useful, but they will not know the nuance of what it takes, because all businesses are unique. Like I spend my whole life advising on building recruitment companies. I would hesitate to advise someone how to grow their air conditioning company. I might have some generic help, but I don't know the nuance. So I think you've got to work out what markets you're going to be in, what segments you're going to focus on, what your role is going to be and how that's going to change as you hire your first, second, and third people, your pricing positioning in the marketplace, your marketing strategy. There's many things. I'm sure we're going to get to them, but we need a plan. Yeah.
All right, so you're talking about, so working back from your first hire, is there any particular sort of, KPIs you could put into the plan that's not money related that can help you achieve to get to that first hire?
Yeah, so the first thing is, you said not money related, but we've got to start there because you need the cash to finance the hiring of a second person. And many times when people start, and a lot of the people that you've referred to who are starting, they won't have a lot of cash to back themselves. What they'll be saying is, gee, I'm billing $500,000 a year working for Greg's Recruitment. I'm sure I can do $300 a year on my own, and I've got no overhead, so most of it's mine. And that's fine, and that's probably true. But as soon as you hire somebody, you're paying $80,000 plus just to have them walk in the door. So you need to have either a financial reserve or the cash flow to fund the hire. But the other things you'll look at is business momentum, job orders, clients won. So for example, if you're working on your own and you have got a vision to grow, you might actually have 5 or 6 clients to give you regular business. Well, you have to say to yourself, I'm going to manage that, but I'm also going to do business development to win new clients. So when I bring somebody on, I can feed them. Now, a lot of people go, well, I don't want to hire someone and then feed them. You've got to be much more pragmatic than that. You do want to feed them because it's leverage. You're doing your billings and you're helping them do their billings. They're getting their salary, but you're getting the excess. So numbers of jobs, numbers of clients, ability to access candidates. What I'm really saying is you need to look at the building blocks that's going to allow a second hire to succeed. Because what happens often I see with the founder, for want of a better word, making his or her first hire is that person doesn't work out. Now that's costly for any business, but when it's just a one-person business, it can be devastating.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, like that first hire, is there a specific role that you'd recommend bringing in as that first hire? Is it a resource? Is it a biller? Is it an ops person?
Good. It's a good question, but the answer may not be what you expect. It needs to be like a jigsaw puzzle, and what I mean by that is it needs to complement what you're good at.
Yeah.
So say you started a recruitment business tomorrow, and you're good at transacting, but what you're really good at is winning clients, and you love that. I was that guy. I was good with clients. I used to go to client meetings and I used to have a good success rate. But after about 5 years, if I'd interviewed another candidate, I would have jumped off the harbour bridge. Now, if that was me, I would have been smart to hire a person who was great on the resourcing and the candidate work, because that's a fit. And then one-on-one's going to make 3, right? And that's what you're trying to do when you make a hire. You're not trying to make one-on-one make 2, because you're not actually going forward. You want one-on-one to make 3. So I'm transacting, I'm billing, but I'm also winning excess work. Hire a person that fits that. On the other hand, and I might be a very good systems, process, transacting person, great client relationships, but I'm not brilliant at opening doors. Then you're going to hire somebody with that mindset and skill capability. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So you got to obviously bring someone in that complements you.
And most people don't do that. They hire knee-jerk, somebody that popped up in their LinkedIn feed or at the pub, and, or gave them a call, and they go, right, this is my growth. But just, you need to think strategically. You need to be opportunistic. And if you meet a great recruiter in the pub and that person's right, hire them. But don't just hire them because they're the person in front of you at that time. Think about how do I get my 3 out of 1-on-1? And so I think you need to be careful about that. Also, there are a lot of restraints. Like you might see a great person you'd like to hire, but they want a base salary of 150 and you simply can't afford it. So sometimes you've got to work within your resource capability.
Yeah, one thing I come across with some startups is when they make their first hire, is they'll hire an experienced recruiter that doesn't complement their industry, and then ends up basically not working out because they can't push that person forward.
Well, what often happens, it's a good point. What often happens is I started a recruitment business in accounting because that's my sweet spot. It's going nicely. And then I meet you and you're in engineering recruitment. I'm not really into engineering recruitment, but you're a great recruiter and I'm going to grow my bit. I'll hire you. And you do well, let's say. But after a year you leave. Well, I'm no longer in engineering recruitment. That's a complete waste of time. It'd be much smarter I hired a person not as good as you, but who's good enough to service the accounting market, and I grow. I'm not saying don't diversify, but do it strategically, not sporadic or haphazardly, it's a better word, because it almost always backfires. So you need to plan about what you're going to do. I've seen it happen before where they might hire 4 people. You're doing marketing, you're doing engineering, I'm doing IT, and Russ, who's not in the video because just not good looking enough, he's doing healthcare. So we're all doing well, but there is no synergy. So as soon as one leaves, we're no longer in that market. Yeah. It'd be much better if all 4 of us were in accounting. Yeah. Then if one leaves, it's a pain in the butt, but we don't lose that much because we still have got the clients and the candidates.
Yeah, and the candidates are turning over, being updated as opposed to a dead bed of roses. Yeah. Engineering candidates you want to use.
Exactly, you're then out of it. Actually, big companies make that mistake. Like we're in accounting recruitment and business support, but I've just met this marketing recruiter and she's great. Hire them and she does well, but a year later when she leaves, we're no longer in marketing recruitment. And then they have to go to the website and take it off because we don't do it anymore. Well, it's all wasted. There's no synergy, there's no plan. And that's a big problem for startups.
So one of my clients today, I had this conversation with, they're a tech recruiter. They got the opportunity to move into medical off the back of one recruiter because they're a big biller, and that's something you wouldn't recommend.
Oh, most definitely not. Let me put some caveats and explanation around that. I had a similar situation in COVID. One of my clients who was in accounting said, Greg, we're going to get into healthcare. And I was like, why? And he's like, Greg, are you stupid? Healthcare's booming. And I'm like, well, yeah, I am stupid. But are you stupid? Because you know that in healthcare, there's 50 great healthcare recruitment companies that have been doing it for 25 years. What are you going to bring? Have you got any clients? No. Have you got any candidates? No. Have you got any expertise? No. Have you got any insights? No. You're going to waste money. Now, on the other hand, if I'm an accounting recruiter and I have got a careful and research strategy to get into another discipline, doing that in a strategic way, which wouldn't be with one recruiter, it would be finding a leader and one other and really investing to get traction, or even buying another business, those can be strategically smart things. But just adding a recruiter in a completely different discipline because they are available is almost always a recipe for disaster.
So going back to the startup, do you think is a benefit to being a generalist or be more strategic and being more niche and being a specialist?
So I have to admit my mantra for 40 years, which is I think you should be a mile deep and an inch wide. Yeah. It's better. Now, that doesn't mean to say you can't have a company that focuses on 12 different disciplines. You can. I mean, I've just come from People to People, which is up the road, and I was one of the founders. I hadn't done a day's work in it. That's one of the reasons people say it's been successful. But they started in accounting recruitment. They've now got 12 disciplines, but they've got 12 streams of specialists. Yeah. You don't have a person doing, accounting and legal. It might be something that in rare circumstances you could do at the start, but you've got to very quickly move to specialization. You've got to be careful with your specialist strategy because you don't want to be doing a startup in a specialization that is perhaps a profession or a sector that's dying or waning. You've got to be careful about that. But if you're confident that that's not the case, you start specialist and then you strategically would expand from there.
I just want to wind it back a bit where we talk about first hires and getting someone that complements you. Would it be wise if you're a perm recruiter to hire a contract recruiter, or would you want someone to complement you and dual desk? So
the answer to that question would be to step back a bit and say, go back to my first question, is why are you doing this? Why are you even startup? And if you are doing a startup for you and maybe 2 other people to sit on your kitchen tables and make as much money as you can, you may not need to go into temp. You could be very profitable in permanent. You would have to accept that in downtimes, recessions, you're going to take a massive hit. But you would maybe concede that because you don't want to get into the whole infrastructure required to run a temporary business. Putting that to one side, if you're going to build a business that you think you're going to sell one day, or even not sell, but where you want to maybe at some point have a team of recruiters where you can step back and grow olives in the Hunter Valley 2 days a week, or whatever your plan is, growing a temporary business is an outstanding idea. People often ask me, when's a good time to start a temporary business? And the answer to that is the good time to start a temporary business was 10 years ago, and the second best time is today, because it's always part of a sustainable recruitment business, a highly profitable one, and one that's resistant against downturn. But if you're a permanent recruiter and that's your expertise, you've got to be cautious and strategic about hiring a temp recruiter, because with a perm recruiter, you could just hire the person, sit them on the desk, and away they go. With a temp, you've got, and you guys know this in your business, you've got funding issues, you've got compliance issues, you need much better technology, you need ability to have a payroll, there's risk, a much greater risk of litigation. So while it's an exceptional business plan to do it, you've got to go into it with your eyes wide open and with a bigger plan. So if you were only going to go to 2 people, I'd probably say, well, maybe just go to 2 permanent people, but be prepared for a lower income when the market turns.
So just on the contract, compliance, funding, that's all the issues that we solve. So any of those companies that come to, we help them with that.
Good pitch.
Yeah, it was really subtly done. But you're absolutely right. And I do say to people in not only startups, but bigger businesses, it's much smarter to get top quality advice and support in those areas than try and do something you're not good at yourself.
So that might bring actually a question that we haven't discussed. It's about outsourcing parts of your company to help you grow. Do you have any experience of?
No, a lot of it. Yeah. I think that can range from simple or obvious things to outsourcing the preparation of your accounts to an accountant, to much more complex and controversial things like outsourcing part of the delivery process of recruitment to offshore, for example. Or now with post-COVID, it may not be offshore, but it might be someone in some other part of Australia and on a lower cost base, all sorts of things that you can do. So certainly, obviously, obvious things are accounting, tech, payroll, marketing, candidate sourcing. I've seen work very well, particularly in markets where it's high volume and call center people. It didn't take off like people predicted, but in Australia, there's still recruitment companies using outsourcing in the Philippines or India or other places. I've got a client who's got a whole marketing and PR group in the Philippines. To her credit, she treats them as part of her team and she flies them in for the annual conference, and but it's all done remotely, and of course there's quite a big arbitrage on the salaries.
So it sounds like when you're going to outsource, find the right expertise, make sure it's cost effective, and you've got to have complete trust in that brand to make sure your business.
You do. You've got to remember that you can never say to a client, look, that went badly because we outsource it. That's not a discussion point. So you've got to be absolutely sure that it's not a core responsibility that you should keep in-house. It's not something, I say this about technology a lot, but I'll say it about outsourcing. Any decision you make, you've got to understand the impact it has on the stakeholders in your business. And those stakeholders are clients, candidates, and your own staff. So a lot of people, just touching on technology, not so much out, a lot of people say, here's a great piece of tech, it's going to save us a lot of money and make us more efficient. Let's do it, it's a no-brainer. And I say, what's the impact on candidates? Well, they may not love it, but it's going to save us a lot of money. That's a terrible decision. All of us have had experience of trying to speak to our bank or insurance company or Qantas, and they've got all the tech in the world, but it's very unsatisfactory customer experience, and that is actually an interesting. We're getting off topic, but it's a very interesting side effect of AI and automation, is that I think our industry is going to go through a period where AI makes things much worse before it makes it any better. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Greg. Yeah. Well, I just want to explain that. Like for example, that people talk about AI, about how much it's going to help recruiters. Do you understand how much help it's going to give to job seekers? They can prepare their resumes, search out jobs, and apply for those jobs while they're asleep. And what that means is that recruiters are going to get flooded with inappropriate candidates. And it's going to make recruiting much harder. People don't talk about this much because advocates of AI are all about how sexy it is. And it's going to be incredible, but it's going to be problematic.
Would you not use AI then to review all those?
Yeah, but in the end, AI is actually, the part about AI that's a bit of a worry is the eye. It's not that smart.
I think with like the technology piece, what's your experience of like startups that don't invest in tech at the start and then startups that do?
Well, if you don't invest in the right tech at the beginning, particularly now, as opposed to say 15 years ago, where you could probably fumble your way through for a while without the tech, there's a few things. First of all, you won't grow as fast. Secondly, you will disappoint customers. Thirdly, you will fail to attract good recruiters. And fourthly, it's impossible to scale on a analog phone book and card system. Yeah, I'm joking, but you can't. You need the tech to scale. Plus, increasingly, we need insights, so, I mean, I think the difficulty, though, is I think very few people would argue no tech is better than tech, but it's which tech. And it's not only that. I mean, let's take the simple thing like an ATS, and we are filming this in the offices of JobAdder, so there's a plug for one of my other friends, is that having the tech is completely unrelated to whether your staff use the tech. So having the best ATS in the world is useless unless you train and require, have accountability for people to use it appropriately so that the search and the other interactions can work. So, I mean, that is a big flaw, I'm sure in a lot of companies, but in recruitment, I mean, I won't put a figure on it, except I will. I reckon it's about, people use about 20% of the capability of their tech.
Oh, easy.
If that.
That's why there's so many ATS systems out there, because people just find whatever matches to that part of their brain and off they go.
Yeah, and there's plenty of people who that I've had conversations with who've said, I'm going to leave this ATS and get a new one because it can't do this. And I'm like, I think it can. And when we didn't know that. It's like me and my car. I reckon I use about 3% of the things it can do. I know how to steer and put the music on.
Is that an S-Class, is it? It's S-Class.
Mercedes. No, like if you think I'm a Mercedes guy, we are not simpatico.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, my wife wanted a car that would park itself, and she never uses it.
No, that's right. Exactly, because she doesn't give the trust to it and all that. Or learn how it's scary, right? Anyway.
So talking about tech, then, what are the fundamentals pieces of tech that recruiters should invest in at the start?
Oh, I'm not a tech expert, but I mean, we need a great ATS.
Yeah.
Of course. I think we need to look at a system that integrates with candidate engagement. And that in itself is a whole, going down a rabbit warren, because we need the tech, but we also need the human touch. So it needs both. But I've got plenty of clients who are using the tech really intelligently with their candidates. So, for example, in the temp candidate area, a recruiter can search for candidates that got certain skills and then send them a text saying, sorry to bother you, if this is wrong, don't reply, but if you're interested in a 6-month job, blah, blah, blah. And then when the person calls or texts back, they can have a conversation. So it's not that advanced, but it's very, your tech needs to make your job of the recruiters easier to talk to people. That's the irony. That's where AI and everything's going to have its real impact. It's going to take away the drudgery, but it's going to free recruiters up to do the influencing skills. Problem is, a lot of recruiters don't have those skills. So I think that's the sort of, I'd also have tech that integrates with marketing. So we can, for example, if we've got a candidate that came second on a list, we can use the tech to find out which of our other clients have hired people like that, and then reverse market candidates in. Certainly you need very sophisticated tech around your temporary business, payroll. I mean, that's not sophisticated, but look, there are recruitment companies that sort of, they're not actually faxing timesheets in, but they're still very manual. You guys would have seen that.
Oh, yeah.
And that's just crazy in this environment. So all that that's in the category of basic. Next tier up would be using other quite old-fashioned, almost new tech like chatbots. People say candidates don't want chatbots. A chatbot that makes it easy for a candidate to find out what they want, is good, as long as they can speak to someone when they want to. Often a candidate wants to know, is this job in Brisbane? Is it 100 grand? And do I have to work on Fridays? Yes, yes, yes. Okay, I want to talk to someone. Or no. Okay, I'll do something else. That's good. Saves a lot of time for everybody. So, but a problem is, you know, in most chatbots or AI assistants, they are worse than useless. They just don't help you, and so that's the question you ask yourself: does this piece of tech make it a better experience for our customers? If it doesn't, don't implement it.
Yeah, that's good advice.
It's very good advice, actually. Most people don't take it, though.
So we're coming to the end of the year now, 2023. So just to finish this off, like, what would be some of the considerations recruiters should be thinking about to kick off 2024?
Well, one of the things I get concerned about when we go through a situation like we've had, which was a boom post-COVID, none of us were really expecting it, but it was a boom for the industry for a couple of years, I suppose, and now it's softened a bit, is what I call the seesaw effect, where, you know, owners of recruitment companies were frantic to hire recruiters for a couple of years. Now they're laying them off. And you will see many times, I've seen this many times, I'm seeing it happen now, a company that was 6 people and took 2 or 3 years to grow to 20 will cut costs so dramatically that they'll go back to 6. And then it'll take them 5 years to get back to 20, if ever. So we're looking at 24. None of us can predict the future, I suppose, but it's likely to be potentially challenging in the first half of the year. You've got to cut your costs and manage your costs according to your income, but don't overdo it. An example of that would be, why would you cut all your marketing? Why would you cut all your training? Actually, now's the time we should be training people more than ever, because a lot of people don't have the skills to cope in this market. So those are things that, yeah, you make sure you're getting value, but don't just discard huge parts of the infrastructure that have made you successful. And the big one is people. Of course, people are our biggest cost. It's sort of 60-70% of every dollar we spend is on staff. So they have to be productive. And if you've got too many people for the work, you're going to have to rationalize that. But don't overdo it. If you've got a person who's showing great promise and who's doing good work and getting better, and even if they only just cover their costs, it's much smarter to keep them on, because when it takes off, you're going to have those people. Instead of what normally happens is you let them all go, and in a year from now, we'll hear recruitment owners squealing about the lack of recruiters. Well, it's your fault. You fired them all.
So thanks so much, Greg. That was awesome advice. We really appreciate your time today.
Total pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
No, that's awesome. So anyone that listened today, please subscribe, share on LinkedIn, share with your friends. We are trying to grow the podcast, so we would appreciate that. Thanks.